Welcome into Seattle Seahawks today. I am your host, Tom Downey. We're going to break down everything going on around the Seahawks today. And no surprise, we're going to begin with J.J. Watt. There's the stunning news, although we kind of warned you guys, if you're subscribed, that J.J. Watt has been released by the Houston Texans. And what every single fan base out there wants to know is, my team going to get J.J. Watt? So, of course, let's focus in on the Seahawks side of things here. I don't know how great the percentage is of the chances of J.J. Watt ending up in Seattle, but I will say this. I think you would be doing yourself as an organization a disservice if you didn't at least explore the possibility of going out and adding a player of J.J. Watt's caliber. Now, I do understand that there are injury concerns around J.J. Watt, and he's missed time over the past couple years, and he only had 9 sacks the past 2 years combined. But remember, that was a pretty bad Houston Texans defense. Like, it was garbage. Let's be honest with that. It was not a good unit there. We also had 14 tackles for loss. Do I think that J.J. Watt is the same J.J. Watt that we all grew accustomed to watching be arguably, and frankly he was for an extended period of time, the best defensive player in the NFL? No, I don't think that's the case. I also don't think he's going to demand that type of contract from any team, including the Seattle Seahawks. Where things get dicey is figuring out exactly where J.J. Watt fits in on this defense and what role you're going to be able to find for him. I am intrigued by the possibility of adding J.J. Watt, but he's going to be expensive. I do think he would be a fantastic fit kind of in that 5 technique role where you give him some reps as a stand-up or as an edge rusher, as a defensive end, and you also give him some opportunities to rush from the interior, something Seattle loves to do and something they've had immense success with. If you can find a way to reduce Carlos Dunlap's cap, which in general is a must, yes, I would go explore J.J. Watt. Why I think this doesn't end up happening in the end, and feel free to get your guys' votes in right now, why for yes and for no, is I am of the mindset that, you know what ends up happening? Seattle devotes that money to the offensive line to keep Russ happy, and they hope on Darrell Taylor having a big-time year, and what in reality is going to be his first season playing for the Seahawks. So I would explore it. My assumption is the end result will be, the money's not quite right, the need's not quite right. We'll try and find somebody cheaper. Like, if J.J. Watt wants to sign cheap in Seattle, how can you say no? Only to find out is to go ask him. So I would explore it. I just don't think it's the most likely outcome in the end for the Seahawks. Now, if you guys want free daily videos on everything going on around the Seahawks, hit that big red button and subscribe. That way you don't miss out on anything that we got for you guys here. It's pretty much daily for the Seahawks. Not quite every day. It's more like 6, but we'll get there in the near future. If you want to stay up to date, hit that big red button and subscribe. Let's go to Golden Tate now, as my keyboard didn't press. This is an interesting idea, and I am fascinated by it, right? So ESPN's Bill Barnwell puts together a bunch of different predictions for all the receivers in the NFL. He'll get most wrong because that's how predictions work, right? What was pitched by Barnwell was Golden Tate gets cut by the Giants, which makes sense. It saves up to $8.5 million. That's a no-brainer for New York. And he ends up back in Seattle on a 1-year, $2 million deal. Now, Golden Tate this past year was not great. Certainly not the player that so many of us are accustomed to seeing and we're used to seeing in Seattle, even with Detroit way back when. A 1-year, $2 million deal, though, for Golden Tate? I'm intrigued. I think Seattle needs another number 3 receiver, or a number 3 receiver, I should say. Like, I'm looking at this team, and I go, well, okay. You know, you got DK Metcalf, whom I love. You have Tyler Lockett, who I also love. David Moore, Philip Dorsett are both free agents. That leaves Freddie Swain and Penny Hart and John Ursura and Aaron Fuller and guys you don't really trust as options for the top of your team. So if I could get Golden Tate on a 1-year, $2 million deal, hell yeah, sign me up. That sounds like a great number 3 to operate over the short middle area of the field, lined up in the slot for the most part. That's exactly what this team needs. The one big potential red flag I think you might have is, hey, is this something Russell Wilson wants and or desires? Because I do remember some issues allegedly between Russell Wilson and between Golden Tate. Now, I think they've buried the hatchet, but who knows? Like, if you're going to add an offensive piece, especially at receiver, it pretty much has to be one that your franchise quarterback, who's made a very big deal about being involved, actually wants. So this question will be the pinned comment on today's video, so go ahead and scroll on down and get your votes in here. Do you want to bring back Golden Tate? S for sign, P for pass. If you get the ad break here on YouTube, scroll on down and get your votes in. Let's talk now about Russell Wilson because it's impossible to ignore right now. Welcome to just where we're at right now in the Seahawks offseason. It's going to be a long one, just so we're all clear. The updates here are kind of more the same. Washington is monitoring the situation for a possible trade. Okay, we'll see. I doubt it happens. In fact, it's not going to happen just between me and you. What I do want to make note of, there are clearly issues between Russell Wilson and between the Seahawks. And this is coming off a year in which Russell Wilson was good. He had a fantastic season for the Seahawks. In total, 69.7% through the air, completion-wise, over 4,000 yards, 40 touchdowns. Some will say they don't trust Wilson to throw it 30 to 40 times a game, yet they absolutely did this past year. Where the root issues are is what happened in the back half of the season. 66.6% is a bad sign. 14-7 touchdown interception ratio, drastically lower than what it was in the first 7 games. The adjusted yards per attempt fell off a cliff. I think everyone here is in agreement, and this is true for the organization in Seattle as well, that things did not work down the stretch. And that is a big deal because they got to get that figured out. But, and although I think for the most part we agree with, hey, the offensive line was not good enough for Russell Wilson, I think Russell Wilson publicly saying that led to some issues. I don't think that went over very well within the organization, and that shouldn't be a huge surprise. Like, that is something we would have to anticipate. I don't think Wilson's teammates necessarily liked it, like, oh, I'm tired of getting hit. Like, if you're Mike Iupati, if you're Ethan Posick, you're a free agent, shoot, I don't think you like that very much. Even if it's true, I don't think you want the quarterback saying that, especially when he himself does bear some blame. So I think Russ was right, but I do think it's going to lead to some issues, and I think that that is a very real concern for this organization as they move forward. Figuring out, okay, look, Russ is right, but we got to make sure he's happy. Are there core issues between Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll? I kind of think that there are. That's not to say that you can't figure those out. But if Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson continue to clash on the philosophy, which I think at some level they do, could be a problem down the road. He's not going to get traded this year. The money does not make sense. At some point, though, well, maybe. It's possible. Next year, the cap hit the way it's structured, you could save some money. Again, you add $7 million right now to trading if you were to trade away Russ. There's no chance. It's not going to happen. But will he retire as a Seahawk? I don't know. So get your votes in. 1 for yes or 0 for no. Look, I firmly believe that Russ and the Seahawks, they could use some couples counseling, especially Pete Carroll and Russ. And if you guys forgot about Valentine's Day, guess what? You're going to have to do the same. So, pro tip, if you forgot about Valentine's Day, say that you ordered from Pro Flowers and go do it right now. Chatsports.com/flowers will save you 15% off. And then use the pandemic as an excuse to say, oh, I ordered a while ago. It just got backloaded, sweetheart. I'm so sorry. Guess what? You're still going to be in some trouble, but you know what else? It's not going to be as bad of trouble. So head over to chatsports.com/flowers. I will put that link in the comments and in the description. That way, all you guys got to do is click and go shop and avoid getting in too much more trouble for those of you who forgot, or if you just want to get something else on top of this Valentine's Day. Let's talk offensive line some more now. How about drafting Quinn Meinerz, who absolutely dominated, by the way, at the Senior Bowl? I don't mind it. I am intrigued by this as a possibility. It was mentioned by Jay Keeps. I think at some point we mentioned it before on the channel, but everything blurs together these days. Sorry about that. I think it makes some sense. You would have to take him in round 2, and that's a bit dicey since he went from might get drafted late day 3 to, well, shoot, this guy's going to probably go top 75, top 100 lock there after doing so well at the Senior Bowl. But if I'm Seattle, I'm looking for a left guard. I'm looking for a center. I feel great about Dwayne Brown. I got Damian Lewis locked and loaded in at right guard for the long term. I can survive with Brandon Shell. So, yeah, I'm looking interior offensive line. If Quinn Meinerz is there in round 2, I would consider it. I would prefer Landon Dickerson from Alabama. I would prefer Quinn from Oklahoma. But you know what? If Meinerz is the next best center on the board, I'm on board with that all the way. Let's talk trade now. FanSided has pitched the idea of, hey, what if the Seahawks were to go out and trade for Orlando Brown? In fact, pitch it as they got to go do this. They have to make sure this gets done. There's no way that they cannot do it. And there are some problems with this. I applaud the idea of trying to upgrade on the offensive line to help out Russell Wilson. But Orlando Brown wants to play left tackle and get, more importantly, paid like a left tackle. He's a good football player. There are going to be a lot of teams interested. If you're the Seahawks, best you can offer is your second-round pick, maybe an extra late-round pick on top of that. I don't know why the Ravens would say yes to that. That's not. I think they can get an early second, late first at least for Orlando Brown. As a result, I think that takes them out of the running from a draft capital. So maybe they throw in a player. That could always work there. But if he is committed to, I only want to play left tackle, you have Dwayne Brown in there. Like, he is your left tackle. He's like your best offensive lineman by a wide margin. So at that point, maybe the fit's not quite all right. Maybe it's not perfect. You could ask one of those guys to play right tackle at Dwayne Brown's age. I don't really want to push him over there and ask him to do that anymore. So, look, it is certainly an option, but I don't think that's the route that I would choose to go. I don't think that's the decision I would make if I were the Seahawks. I think you can find somebody else. You can find a better situation. I don't believe that going after Orlando Brown in the end, and unfortunately, makes the most sense for this team.